Welcome to Kids Recall. In today's video, we'll be going through the 2021 superhero movie, Venom, Let There Be Carnage. It's time to recall. Let's get started. Turn on subtitles and spoilers ahead. The movie starts and we see a house in the dark and a tree outside. The leaves are swaying slowly. The scene then changes to a man who has a small piece of rope and he rolls it on his fingers. He is, however, interrupted by another man when he shouts and the lights around him go out. His dark surroundings are even darker now. This is when we hear a woman's voice who goes on to ask the man if he's still there, as the surroundings now are too dark. He refers to the woman as his love and goes on to give her that little piece of rope he had. The man's name is Cletus and the woman's name is Frances. Frances finds it hard to speak plainly as her voice trembles with fear. Cletus then goes on to ask the woman about the doctor's findings. She gets even more scared and upset upon being asked the question, but still goes on to tell him that the doctors told her that her powers are too firm and that she is going to be taken away. Tears roll down her cheeks as she says that. She adds that she is not going to be around for a long time, as they're going to take her away to the place where people like her are kept. The news doesn't sit well with Cletus, and he trembles in anger. He is, however, unable to do anything about it. Two men show up and take Frances away. Cletus shouts for her, but that is all he's able to do, and then she disappears. She tells him that she loves him. Cletus then tries to break the window of his room, but to no avail. We see an old man noticing Frances being taken away as she tries to break free from the men holding her. We learn that the woman is being taken to the Ravencroft Institute. Cletus still pounds on the window now as he sees his beloved being pushed into a police van, and as he looks on, the van drives away with Frances. As Frances sits in the van, she sees an officer named Patrick Mulligan, and she looks closely at the name displayed on his shirt. She wants to put an end to the man and goes on to give him a look as she asks him if he has had any last words to say. The man doesn't know what's going on and looks at her having a confused expression on his face. Before he's able to ask her what's going on, the woman goes on to scream, and she uses her supersonic powers, and her voice roars inside the vehicle. The vehicle now starts to lose its balance, and the officer tries to get out his gun. He manages to shoot the woman, and she goes rolling down the road outside the van. He shoots her in the eye and believes that she's dead. As he stares at the woman on the floor, he feels that his ears still ring due to the damage done by the woman's supersonic voice. The scene still changes to Frances lying in a bed, and her left eye has been bandaged. She wakes up and tries to make sense of what's going on. When she looks at herself in the mirror, the voice of a woman interrupts her, and she's told that they welcome her to Ravencroft, which is going to be her new home. Frances then gets to read the paper where she learns about the death sentence of Cletus, and the woman around her tells her that the world is going to be a better place now, and that her partner truly deserves what he gets. Frances goes on to touch the ring given to her by Cletus as she tries to ignore the woman talking to her. In the next scene, we see Detective Patrick. He's the same Patrick from earlier, and he's now been promoted to detective. He goes on to talk to a man named Eddie, and Eddie tells him that he does not have to do anything with Cletus, but Patrick says that he only wants to talk to him. Eddie then asks him why Cletus wants to talk to him. He says that it must be about the dead bodies that have been hidden. He should definitely go and talk to him. We then see Venom coming out of Eddie's body, and as it is about to attack Patrick, Eddie manages to stop Venom. Venom and Eddie go into a bathroom, and Venom says that they should be in the city protecting it. Instead, they're just sitting there doing nothing but talking. Patrick, along with another woman who overhears this conversation, and Venom then goes on to call him a bottom feeder, and Eddie tells him that he should respect him. Eddie finally agrees and goes to see Cletus. He tells Eddie that he has to print something for him in the newspaper, and that if he does that, he's going to give him an exclusive interview in which he'll let him know how he killed so many people and what was the reason behind it. He asks why Cletus has chosen him of all people, to which Cletus tells him that he likes him and nothing more. He then goes on to ask him about the same thing which Frances read in the newspaper a few days ago. After that, Eddie is about to get out of there, but Venom stops him and tells him to look at the things drawn on the wall. There he sees a statement on the wall and also some graves and a cathedral. He looks at it for a few seconds and leaves. As Eddie leaves, Cletus tells him not to forget him. When Eddie comes out of the building, Patrick right away asks him what Cletus told him, and Eddie says that he didn't tell him anything of note. Eddie, however, says that he's going to be working on it, and then it takes some time to get to know these things. Eddie then makes his way home, where Venom goes on to help him decode everything they saw on the wall in Cletus's cell. They finally manage to crack the code, and Venom goes on to tell him about the location of the place where Cletus has hidden all the dead bodies. He reports it to the police, and many of them make their way to that location the next day, and they find many dead bodies. They're all the victims of Cletus. Amidst the police operation, many reporters also show up at the location and go on to corner Eddie. They ask Eddie how in the world Cletus told him about the location, and they ask him if he's friends with the man. Eddie's interview with Cletus goes on TV, and Patrick is upset about that, as Eddie did not tell him about it being aired on television. Now Cletus is definitely going to be executed, and there are hundreds of proofs. The news spreads like wildfire, and Francis also gets to know about it. Cletus also thinks that Eddie has played him, as he did everything just to get some fame. We see that Eddie gets overnight fame after his interview goes viral with Cletus. The scene changes to Venom and Eddie, where Venom tells Eddie that they are going to finish off their enemies now. Venom also goes on to say that he's sick of eating chickens and chocolates, and that he wants to eat humans now. Eddie, however, tells him that they are already very much occupied with the Cletus case, so they should not be taking any more risks. Eddie says that if a person goes missing, the FBI is going to be on their asses right away, so this is not the right time to want to eat humans. They again start to argue, and Venom starts throwing disrespectful remarks towards Eddie. And Eddie yet again reminds Venom that he should be respecting him, but Venom keeps calling him names. We then see him going to see a woman at the store, and after that, he makes his way to a poultry farm. Venom shows up and starts to eat chickens. When they're on their way back, they spot a goon harassing a woman on the road. The man even tries to mug her. Eddie tells Venom not to get involved in the matter, but Venom doesn't listen to him and tries to catch the mugger to eat him. When Eddie sees that it's not stopped, he's going to eat the man, he requests Venom to let go of the man, and he does. When they're about to leave for home, Eddie receives a call from Anne, his ex-fiancée, who asks him to come and see her. They meet at a diner, and when they're having a chat, Eddie keeps talking to himself, but in actuality, he is talking to Venom. She, however, understands and goes on to ask if Venom is still with him as of that moment. He, however, tells her that Venom is dead. She then tells him that she's engaged to a man named Dan. Eddie gets a little emotional hearing this, and this is when Anne directly starts talking to Venom. She says that she knows he's still there and tells him to take good care of Eddie. After that, Eddie leaves for home on his bike. The next day, he receives a letter from Cletus in which he blames Eddie for making him sentenced to death, and he also goes on to tell him about the dark crimes he's committed, where he killed his closest family members as well. He tells Eddie when he did all this, his dad then sent him to an orphanage, where even all the kids would bully him. This is where he met Francis, who was a mutant. They became good friends, and that friendship then changed them into liking each other. And at the end of the letter, he writes that he wants to see Eddie once more, and Eddie agrees. He goes to see him, and Cletus says different things to get in Eddie's head and piss him off. Venom gets out of him and attacks Cletus, and amidst all of this, Cletus manages to bite his hand. He tastes Eddie's blood, and it tastes different, and he's a little confused. Back at his apartment, Eddie is pissed off at Venom for the incident at the prison, and Venom tries to apologize to him, but Eddie tells him that due to his stupid move in the prison, they were unable to get Cletus's last statement. This leads to a heated argument, which ends with the two of them throwing things at each other. Venom goes out of the apartment and wrecks Eddie's bike before he leaves. The scene then changes, and we see Cletus being tied to a bed as he's about to be executed via injection. The two guys standing by his side go on to narrate the reasons for his sentence and ask him if he has any last words to say. Cletus looks at the camera, addressing the audience, and says, "Enjoy the show." As his last words, he's then ejected. Before he's able to close his eyes and die, he gets out of control as Venom's blood, the blood he tasted earlier when he bit Eddie, that blood starts to fight the poison inside his body. It becomes chaotic, and Cletus transforms into Carnage. Cletus now breaks free and kills every person he sees. He then goes on to break the wall of the prison as well. He transforms back into his normal human form and makes his way out of prison. The scene changes to Eddie's apartment, and he goes on to clean all the mess he and Venom created when they were having their argument. This is when he goes on to see on TV that Cletus has managed to escape the prison, and in the meantime, Detective Mulligan shows up at his apartment. Mulligan goes on to ask him questions about his meetings with Cletus. He thinks that Eddie is involved in whatever is going on with Cletus, and he specifically asks him about his last meeting with the man. He also tells him that he should be careful about his own ass now, as Cletus is out there, and Eddie is the one who was behind his execution. Eddie makes a plan and decides that he's going to find Cletus before Cletus can find him. He goes on to listen to a recorded conversation, and he also takes a look at the drawings related to the man he's looking for. On the other hand, Venom goes into another human body. He keeps trying to get the people to give him attention. On the other hand, we see Cletus walking freely on the road. He spots a car and likes it. He approaches it and, of course, goes on to rob it. Carnage and Cletus then go on to make a deal. Carnage agrees to help Cletus break Francis out of Ravencroft in exchange for Cletus's help eliminating Eddie and Venom. On the other hand, Venom is still at the party. He goes on to get compliments from the people in the bar. He then goes on to step onto the stage and gives a speech about how he feels now. Eddie, on the other hand, makes his way to San Quentin State Prison, where he sees a tree carved with CK Loves FB. Eddie then contacts Mulligan and tells him to locate a connection, and that is Francis. Eddie asks him to find her, but he says he can't as he thinks he shot her dead. Cletus, on the other hand, finds out that Francis is being kept at Ravencroft. He makes his way to the place and strangles a doctor to death. He then frees Francis, and they travel to the St. Estes Children's Home to burn it down. Mulligan grows suspicious of Eddie and arrests him. Eddie contacts Wying as his lawyer and reveals that Venom is separated from him. As Venom makes his way through San Francisco by hopping from body to body, Wying finds him bonded to Mrs. Chen and convinces him to forgive Eddie. Venom reunites with Eddie and they escape custody. Cletus takes Mulligan hostage and Francis captures Wying, taking them both to a cathedral where Cletus and Francis plan to get married. Eddie and Venom arrive to fight Carnage, while Francis seemingly kills Mulligan by hanging him with a chain. Venom is overpowered by Carnage, but provokes Francis into using her powers to separate Carnage and Cletus. Venom devours Carnage and kills Cletus, while Francis is crushed by the collapsing cathedral. Later, an alive Mulligan's eyes flash blue, revealing that he's somehow absorbed a part of Carnage. Eddie and Venom get out of there and sit on a beach, trying to figure out what to do next. In the mid-credit scene, Venom tells Brock about the symbiote's knowledge of other universes. But before Venom can show him, a blinding light transports them from their hotel room to another room, where they watch J. Jonah Jameson reveal Spider-Man's identity as Peter Parker on television. Venom growls and licks Spidey's image on the screen. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and click that bell icon to get new movie recaps.